The atmosphere of your home begins with your words, whether you realize it or not. Every word spoken carries weight, direction, and influence. It is not just communication, it is creation in motion. When you speak, you are setting things in order, either building an environment of faith or reinforcing an environment of doubt. Many people speak casually, not understanding that their words are shaping the very air they live in. They talk about problems constantly, repeat what they feel, and agree with every negative situation, and over time, those words settle into the environment like a permanent condition. If you walk into a home where there is constant complaining, fear, and frustration, you can sense it immediately. There is a heaviness that cannot be hidden. That atmosphere did not appear overnight. It was formed word by word, day by day. In the same way, a home filled with peace and expectation did not happen by accident. It was intentionally created by someone who chose to speak differently, even when circumstances suggested otherwise. Words are seeds, and every seed produces after its own kind. When you plant words of fear, you harvest anxiety. When you plant words of faith, you harvest confidence and peace. Many people wait until they feel better before they speak positively, but that approach will never change the atmosphere. Feelings often follow what is spoken, not the other way around. If you wait for emotions to lead, you will remain stuck in the same cycle. But when you decide to speak life regardless of how things look or feel, something begins to shift internally first. Then that internal shift begins to influence the external environment. Your words begin to carry authority because they are rooted in belief rather than emotion. This does not mean ignoring reality. It means refusing to let reality have the final say. There is a difference between acknowledging a situation and agreeing with it. When you constantly repeat what is wrong, you are giving it power. But when you speak what you desire to see, you begin to redirect the atmosphere. Even if nothing changes immediately, your consistency is working beneath the surface. The environment is adjusting, aligning with the direction of your words. It is important to understand that words spoken once will not transform everything instantly. It is the daily, consistent flow of words that creates lasting change. Speaking life must become a habit, not a reaction. In the morning, your words set the tone. Throughout the day, they reinforce it. Over time, those words become the dominant influence in your home. Others who live with you will begin to feel the difference, even if they cannot explain it. Your voice has been given authority for a reason. It is not meant to echo problems, but to establish direction. Every time you choose to speak life instead of defeat, you are strengthening the atmosphere of your home. You are building something invisible but powerful, something that eventually becomes undeniable. Your thoughts are just as powerful as your words, because what you consistently think on will eventually shape what you say and how you live. The atmosphere of your home is deeply connected to the atmosphere of your mind. If your mind is filled with worry, fear, and constant anxiety, that internal pressure will not stay hidden. It will leak into your environment through your tone, your reactions, and your decisions. Even in silence, what you carry within will be felt by others around you. A restless mind creates a restless home, while a disciplined, peaceful mind creates stability that others can sense. Many people underestimate the power of their thought life. They assume that as long as they are not speaking negativity, everything is fine. But thoughts are seeds in their earliest form. If they are not corrected, they grow stronger and eventually demand expression. A single negative thought may seem harmless, but when entertained repeatedly, it becomes a belief. That belief begins to influence your perception, causing you to interpret situations through a lens of doubt rather than faith. Over time, this shapes the atmosphere, making it difficult for peace to remain. You cannot afford to let your mind wander without direction. Just as you would not allow harmful influences to freely enter your home, you must guard what enters your thinking. Every thought should be examined. Does it produce fear or faith? Does it strengthen you or weaken you? If it does not align with the atmosphere you want to create, it must be replaced. This requires intentional effort because the mind naturally drifts toward what is familiar, not necessarily what is beneficial. Replacing negative thoughts is not about pretending problems do not exist. It is about choosing a higher perspective. When a thought of worry enters, you deliberately answer it with truth. When doubt suggests failure, you counter it with confidence. This is an active process, not a passive one. The more you practice it, the more natural it becomes. Eventually, your default thinking begins to shift, and instead of reacting with fear, you respond with calm assurance. What you meditate on daily becomes the foundation of your inner world. If you constantly replay problems, conversations, and disappointments, you reinforce an atmosphere of tension. But if you choose to focus on solutions, promises, and possibilities, you begin to build an inner environment that supports peace. That peace does not stay confined within you. It flows outward, influencing the entire home. Others may not understand why they feel calmer, but they are responding to the stability you carry. Consistency in thought discipline is what transforms moments of peace into a sustained atmosphere. It is not about controlling every single thought perfectly, but about refusing to give negative thoughts a place to stay. When you correct them quickly and consistently, they lose their ability to take root. Over time, your mind becomes a place of strength rather than struggle, and that strength becomes the unseen force that shapes your home's environment. What you allow into your home will either strengthen the atmosphere or slowly weaken it, and many people overlook this because the effects are not always immediate. Every sound, every image, every conversation carries a certain influence. These influences do not remain external. They settle into the environment and begin to shape how people feel, think, and respond. Your home is like a field, and whatever you permit to enter becomes a seed planted into that field. Over time, those seeds grow, and their presence becomes undeniable. It is easy to think that entertainment, background noise, or casual conversations have little impact, but they are constantly feeding the atmosphere. When negativity is consistently present, whether through what is watched, listened to, or discussed, it creates a subtle shift. Peace becomes harder to maintain, patience becomes thinner, and clarity becomes clouded. This does not happen all at once, which is why it often goes unnoticed. The change is gradual, but it is steady. Being selective is not about restriction, it is about protection. Just as you would not leave your door open for anything to enter freely, you must develop the same awareness with what you allow into your environment. Not everything deserves a place in your home. Some things carry confusion, fear, and heaviness, and if they are allowed to remain, they will influence the overall atmosphere. You have the authority to decide what stays and what goes, and that decision shapes the tone of your home more than any external factor. Conversations also play a major role in what is allowed. Words exchanged between people carry energy, and repeated patterns of negative discussion can anchor an atmosphere in a place of limitation. Constantly talking about problems without shifting toward solutions reinforces a sense of defeat. On the other hand, conversations filled with encouragement, vision, and hope begin to lift the environment. They create space for peace to grow and for confidence to develop. What is spoken between people becomes part of the structure of the atmosphere itself. Sound is another powerful influence. What fills the background of your home matters more than it seems. Silence can be peaceful, but it can also allow the mind to drift if it is not guided. Intentional sound words that uplift, messages that build, or expressions that bring calm can reinforce the kind of atmosphere you are creating. Over time, these sounds become familiar and they begin to define the environment in a way that feels natural and steady. Consistency in what you allow is what makes the difference. One positive input cannot override constant negative exposure. It is the repeated choice to allow what strengthens and remove what weakens that creates lasting change. As you become more aware, your sensitivity to the atmosphere increases. You begin to notice what supports peace and what disrupts it, and this awareness helps you make better decisions about what remains in your space. Your home reflects what you tolerate. When you raise your standard and become intentional about what you allow, the atmosphere begins to respond. The environment becomes lighter, clearer, and more aligned with the direction you have chosen. Shaped by the influences you have permitted to take root. Consistency is what turns a single decision into a lasting atmosphere. Anyone can speak positively for a moment, or control their thoughts for a short period. But transformation happens when those actions are repeated daily without interruption. The environment of your home does not shift because of one good day. It shifts because of many days where you choose the same direction again and again. Consistency builds momentum, and momentum strengthens the atmosphere until it becomes the new normal. Many people start with intention but stop when they do not see immediate results. They speak differently for a day or two, they try to think more positively, and they become more aware of what they allow. But when circumstances remain unchanged, they fall back into old patterns. This is where most lose the opportunity for real change. The atmosphere is not built on occasional effort. It is built on sustained discipline. What you do repeatedly carries far more power than what you do occasionally. Each day presents an opportunity to reinforce the environment you are creating. In the morning, your first words begin to set the tone. If you start with frustration or worry, that tone often carries through the rest of the day. But when you begin with intention, choosing words that align with peace and expectation, you establish a direction that influences everything that follows. Throughout the day, your responses either strengthen or weaken that direction. Every reaction, every decision, every word adds to the atmosphere you are building. It is not about perfection. It is about persistence. There will be moments when you respond incorrectly or allow negative thoughts to linger longer than they should. What matters is how quickly you return to the direction you have chosen. Consistency does not mean you never make mistakes. It means you refuse to stay in them. You correct, you realign, and you continue forward without losing focus. Over time, consistency creates stability. What once required effort begins to feel natural. Speaking life becomes your default rather than something you have to remind yourself to do. Guarding your thoughts becomes a habit instead of a struggle. Being selective about what you allow becomes part of your awareness without constant effort. This is when the atmosphere truly becomes established, because it is no longer dependent on how you feel in a given moment. Others in your home will begin to respond to this consistency. Even if they are not consciously aware of it, they will feel the difference. Stability creates a sense of safety, and a steady atmosphere influences how people think, speak, and behave. Your consistency becomes a silent leadership that shapes the environment without force. The longer you maintain this pattern, the stronger it becomes. What once felt fragile becomes firm. The atmosphere becomes resistant to disruption because it has been reinforced over time. External situations may still change, challenges may still arise, but the internal environment remains anchored. This is the result of consistent daily choices that have been made long enough to take root and hold their place